Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Path of Exile 2 related video. Today I want to talk about something that has been floating around in the community for quite a while and is used as a defense for the issues in the game. Let me start off by saying that overall, I really like this game. It's a really fun game. There's a lot about it that I'm looking forward to for the future. And overall, I have over 300 hours in the game at this point, and I want to continue to play. Obviously, I'm waiting for new builds and stuff to come out, so I need this disclaimer before I jump into this so that you guys understand that I'm not hating on Path of Exile 2. I mean, there are things about it I truly hate, and I've covered those things in the past, but overall, I'm not hating on the game. However, I think that there is a distinction that needs to be made when it comes to how the release was marketed. And you can see from the little bullet points on the left side of the screen what it is exactly that I'm going to be talking about. Now, I'm not the kind of person who dives into news all the time, and I don't really watch all of the streams and everything that they do, so I don't understand. I don't know the mindset of the developers. I'm not following all of that. I don't know anything about it. All I know is the information that is put out there for us to see on, say, Steam, or maybe the odd forum post if I happen to go over there, but I don't generally do that. So it's important to understand the distinction between what the words early access implies versus what the words closed or open beta implies. Because for most people, if you're not hyper paying attention to the information being given out by the developers via whatever live streams they might be doing or other videos, or if you're not deep diving into the forum posts, you're going to hear these words and you're going to make certain assumptions based on what those words typically mean. So first and foremost, I want to define not necessarily technical definitions of what each of these words mean. So I'm sure you can go to different sources, and different sources are going to tell you different versions of what the term early access means and what the word beta means. In general, though, when you hear the words early access, what you're thinking is that you're getting early access to the completed portion of a game because the developer is running into funding issues and they need more money to help continue supporting their development of the rest of the game that's not completed yet. I was watching Talkative Try's video about the delays and all that stuff. He just released it. And for the most part, I think the things that he's saying is reasonable, but I think that the point about early access and the fact that the developers apparently had it in their mind that it was going to be basically a beta kind of situation, and the marketing department forced it to be labeled as an early access situation is, I'm sorry, that's unsat to me. That's just completely an unacceptable approach. Because the words early access implies, when you hear the words early access, based off of the context of how we've seen early access implemented over the past decade or however long it has been since, Steam and other games have started allowing these early access releases of content, it's just not something that you expect to have to run through a bunch of problems to deal with. My favorite example of this kind of a process that was done correctly, is the game Raft. Raft is one of my favorite games that I've ever played. If you don't know about it, it's sort of like a survival game where you start out on this 4 square sized floating raft, and you're supposed to build it out, and you go and visit islands and collect things, and it's basically you build your raft into this big cool thing. There's a whole story associated, and it's all really fun and great. Now, when the game first came out, the only thing you were really able to do was just to build out your raft, and they had some islands that you could visit. There were no story elements included in the early access of the game because those weren't ready to go, and everything you did was just, it was good, it was done, it was finished. There was no, we need you to test this for us kind of stuff happening. They would finish a portion of the game, and then there would be a release of the new content. And yeah, maybe there was a bug here or there, but the content was done. It was intended to be done. There was no intent to test the content on us because they had their own closed betas that they had people participating in to do the testing part of the game. So what that means is that you paid for early access, and you paid for the full version of the game. You paid for early access to the full version of the game, and you as an early access title holder meant that as portions of the game were completed, those parts were added to the game that you had purchased, and you got to play the finished version of the game without having to go through the whole testing process, right? So that is the textbook example of what an early access title should be. Now, a beta process is a completely different understanding and expectation. When you're signing up for some kind of a beta process, now I'm not a programmer, I don't really know exactly how all of the processes work. I do believe that alpha testing is when they're doing all of their internal stuff. They have all of their programming and all of that stuff happening on the inside, and alpha testing is something that happens internally within the company. Then when they're ready, when they're starting to get close to pushing that content out to people, they want to start doing some beta testing so that they can get a larger data set of how their game is interacting with different machines and different systems and different operating systems and things like that, to just kind of see how all of that is going to work with their program. Right? So they start inviting other people in, people who are interested in testing, people who are fine with having to deal with bugs because they want to try out this new thing, they want to see if they can break it. They have a mentality that is geared towards putting up with these things that are a problem, right? So that is something where people are voluntarily choosing to accept a substandard or sub-expected experience because they want to participate in that development process. And it takes a certain mindset to want to do that. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, where does PoE fall in this early access versus beta situation? And it's kind of hard to make the argument that it actually falls within what we would call an early access title, because especially when it first rolled out, many of us were experiencing some serious problems with the game, things that really should have been addressed during a closed or open beta process where they could have found all of these issues and corrected them. I think that, especially things like system-wide crashes like I experienced, and I experienced them for a very long time. It's only recently after I did some things to fix to adjust some things on my machine that I finally addressed the crashes. As far as I know, whatever the problem is that's been causing crashes on my machine is still a problem, but I found a video that helped me kind of wipe those things to the side and kind of sort of fix it. I haven't had a crash in a while, but I still don't feel good about it yet because I haven't heard anything from GGG telling us that they fixed that issue. But that right there is exactly the kind of thing that would be addressed during a closed or open beta process, because people are joining in and then they're collecting their data and then they identify and find these bugs and they try to fix them, right? The only bugs that should really be available once you are getting a completed and finished product are just random tiny little things that you could never have guessed might have been a problem. And a lot of the problems that we're seeing here are they need more information, so they push the product out because they want to test balance, or they want to test this, or they want to test that. The problem with that is that that's a beta process. That is not an early access process. So the question we have to ask is, why does it matter? Why does it matter whether Path of Exile 2 technically falls into the early access, or reasonably falls into the early access category, or the open beta category? Well, the reason why it matters is because they charged money for it. They charged money telling us it was one thing, but it turns out that it was actually something else. And, for some people that might not matter, but for people who don't have a lot of money, that's $30 is not nothing. I know to some people who, $30 you throw that away in 5 minutes, but other people, that $30 is not exactly a throwaway amount of money. And a lot of us would have waited until it actually reached an early access state before we decided to hop in and start spending some money on that. So the problem that we have here is that the game was marketed as one thing. It was marketed in a way where in standard practice you would assume that what you're getting is the final intended product for what you're getting. It's not the complete game, and they may never finish the complete game, but the part that you're paying for is done. It's finished. It's ready to go. That is what early access means. It doesn't mean we're giving you something that's still in testing mode and we're expecting you to slog your way through it and deal with it so that we can make the game better. That is beta testing, and there is a massive difference. Now, is GGG bad for what they did? I'm not going to say that they're bad. I think for the most part, the developer has been pretty honest and sincere in their desire to not only be good to their customers, but also just provide an amazing, awesome game. But in this particular instance, I think that it's an early access game comment just, it doesn't make sense, because there's still a lot that needs to be fixed in the content that they've given us. Things that should have and normally would be identified and corrected during a standard beta process. So that's what I have to say about it. I know there's going to be a million people out there who disagree with me, but realistically, that is what early access implies when you're putting that thing in your cart in the Steam, and putting that thing in your Steam cart and getting ready to play. You are expecting to get the final experience for whatever portion of the game that they've decided to release early to you. And to expect people to just be okay with having to put up with system crashes or extreme balance problems or massive things that need to be changed in the game that's been released so far, I mean, it's kind of a dishonest thing to call it early access when it's in the state that it's in right now. Now, does that mean that I'm not having fun with the game? No. But it does mean that if they had labeled it as a beta versus an early access title, I probably would have waited until they made the technical shift to early access, because I don't enjoy testing. I don't enjoy being part of the testing process. I am super frustrated when things aren't working as intended, and I have to waste time screwing with this or that and trying to get things to work the way that they're supposed to. So I personally would have waited had they been upfront and honest about the actual state of the game, instead of just calling it early access because it was convenient and, you know, convinced people to purchase the early access to do so. So I don't know. It's kind of a shades of gray kind of thing, and I don't know what else to say about that. I don't want to throw shade at GGG, but at the same time, this particular part of it is just like, you guys weren't being totally honest with us, and that kind of bugs me. So take from that what you will. Hopefully all that made sense. Be sure to click the like button, subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers, join as a member for early access to videos, among other perks, or you can just leave YouTube's version of a tip with the thanks button. I also have PayPal and Patreon links in the description if you prefer to go that route, or you can, all right, because some people like to go outside of that. Forgot my mental script. Some people like to go outside of the YouTube economy to help out with the channel, so the links are down there in the description for you. So thanks again for watching. Be sure to come back for our next video, and I'll see you then.